y'all, it's me, Lynn Daniel, coming to you. Today is Tuesday, August 12th, 2014, and I'm coming because, well, it's back to work, back to school session, but I wanted to talk to you all about the Ferguson, the murder of Michael Brown and the Ferguson riots and all of that. You all know that I am a St. Louis girl. I live outside of St. Louis, and I just want to give you a perspective, my perspective. Now, let me preface by saying I did not go to Ferguson to be one-on-one involved in any of the rioting, the marches, the protests, the just assembly. I did not get myself involved. I watched them on TV. I talked to family and friends who were involved. My niece physically attended one of the vigils, and so I'm just really coming to shed light on, like, what is the community like? It's back to school season. How is this affecting the people, and just a little bit about it. So, I mean, if you want to watch, if you think I have something to share, then watch. Okay. All right. So I want to start by saying that when I was taking my very first vocal lessons, my very first vocal coach lived in Ferguson, and I assume she still lives there. She had a very beautiful home in Ferguson. The community was just very safe. I mean, I would take my daughters with me, and at the end of my vocal coach's street, she lived on a cul-de-sac, and like at the end or at a portion of the cul-de-sac was a park, so my girls would play in the park while I did my lesson. And so now that was like a few years back when they were little kids, and they're grown now. But the community pretty much, I think, is a middle class neighborhood with homes, single family homes, apartments, businesses, schools, of course. I don't know if there's a hospital there. I don't think there is. So yeah, it's a suburban community. It's a part of St. Louis County system. St. Louis County and St. Louis City are two separate governing agencies. St. Louis City has a mayor, Mayor Slay, and St. Louis County has a county executive. Charlie Dooley was the first black St. Louis County executive, and he held that post for several terms, and he just was defeated by someone I think named Steve Stenger. And Steve Stenger will be opposing his opponent for the seat in November. Ferguson, if you want to know more about the demographics, I mean, it's a mixed community as far as culturally, racially. But if you want to get the specifics, you can Google, like, to get age, data on age and stuff like that. You know, income, socioeconomic pictures and stuff, so that you can see. But it's a pretty solid community. Now, you can imagine, like, because our country has been going through a hard economic times, I can imagine from the last 20 years the community has shifted. I haven't driven through Ferguson. I think the last time I was in Ferguson was maybe when I had my surgery a couple of years back, and Ferguson is near where my parents' home is, so I mean, it's really like a hop, skip, and a jump. And so I went to the grocery store there in that community. It's part of the Ferguson Florissant School District, I believe, or is it Berkeley? I think it might be either both or Ferguson Florissant School District. It's a nice suburban community, I would say. Middle income, middle to low income community. So low, when I say middle to low, I mean middle to low middle income. And then of course you always have your you're low income in the public housing and stuff. Now, where Michael Brown lived, Canfield Apartments, I do not know if that was public housing. I haven't been in that area, so I don't know if that had shifted to public housing or not. I can remember at one time Canfield Apartments was a very well, it was a relatively new back then, but beautiful. And I think my aunt lived in Canfield Apartments. Beautiful place. So yeah, I'm gonna put some links below, so in the description bar for you all to see. I'll put a link of a video made by a Ferguson citizen to help you. It's a 1 minute, 2 minute video that shows you the city or the community, the citizens there. And just some of the links from the newspaper clips that I scanned and some of the articles that I read. So Saturday, Michael Brown was murdered. He lost his life in the streets of Ferguson, Missouri. His body laid there in the streets, uncovered and bloody, for 4 hours is what it was reported by an eyewitness. Allegedly, it all started, the incident started when Michael and a Ferguson police officer had some sort of entanglement, disagreement situation. They were in the back seat of the police vehicle, and a shot was fired. And this was stated at the press conference held by the police chief, that the officer's gun was fired in the back seat. Mike broke loose, got out and ran, had his hands up in the air. He was wearing flip-flops, and his pants, they were unbelted, so they had fallen down under his buttocks, and that's how his body appeared in the streets for 4 hours, dead, uncovered. And that's the picture that is floating around social media, and the family has, I think the family has asked for the picture to be removed, but I know people are asking to honor the family and remove that picture if you have it. I didn't want to post that picture. I looked at it and I was like, oh my gosh, this is horrible. So it saddens me. It really saddens me. It saddens me because I have ties to Ferguson, you know, loose ties through relationships, friends, family. You know, on Facebook, reading one of my friends on Facebook, who is actually my niece's, one of her best friends. They've been friends for over 25 years. She lives in Ferguson, and so every day she's been posting, please pray for me, pray for us, because she has to go to work and return home, and the streets had been blocked, and the people were out, and the looting was going on, and she was transporting herself through all of that chaos. And so you can imagine the people are fearful, you know, afraid, nervous. And the good thing I heard yesterday, two business owners, it may have been more, but I know a tattoo business owner, and he said he shared a business with a friend, and one was a tattoo owner, and I think one was a gun seller. They got their weapons and they stood out in front of their businesses to prevent their business from being looted. And they said the looters went around them, didn't even say anything to them. And so it's disheartening just to see this going on in St. Louis. St. Louis is a beautiful city. It's a beautiful city. It has really come a long way. It's come a long way culturally in many regards. You know, when I say culturally, I mean, you know, education, the arts, sports. We have so much to offer here in St. Louis. It's a beautiful place. And I don't live in St. Louis anymore. I was born and raised in St. Louis. I don't live in St. Louis anymore. I live outside of the boundaries of St. Louis, but I'm there every day. I touch St. Louis, so it's a part of me. And Ferguson is a hop, skip, and a jump from my parents' home from where I work. You know, it's so I feel closely connected and affected by this whole shebang. So yeah. Now, the police officer's name will not be released. His name was going to be released today, but the Ferguson Police Department reported they have been getting like death threats, and so they are not going to release that name. And it had been stated that the mayor was getting death threats, and so the mayor and his family had to vacate. Now, that has not been substantiated in the news, but I heard it from a reliable source. And I also heard it from a reliable source that the police involved has strong connections to high-ranking officials in the Ferguson government. So yeah, I'll just say it like that. But we just pray that justice will prevail, that a full, thorough, independent investigation will take place, and that the truth and justice will prevail. Al Sharpton met with the family today. Let's see what else happened. Eric Holder and the Department of Justice were on the case immediately Saturday and Sunday. I think it was Sunday. And so they have been closely monitoring it. And now today, Tuesday, President Obama has put an official statement out in regards to this case. So you all, you know, people, I'm gonna comment. I really didn't want to do a personal commentary, but the only commentary I'm gonna say is that initially people were silent, which I guess, you know, shock or puzzled or doubt or whatever, you know, you're shocked. I was in shock when I saw the picture. Initially, and I saw the picture of the dad holding up the sign saying, "The police just murdered my son." And I'm like, he wrote it on cardboard, and he's standing there, and somebody took a picture of him with their phone and pasted it on Facebook and Twitter. And I'm like, what is this? It was like 5 minutes ago. And I'm like, what is this? And then pictures just started coming in of this young man lying on the ground, uncovered, and police standing around, and his pants were down. It was like, it was surreal. It was surreal. And yeah, so I just am baffled and shocked. Now, I will say that St. Louis has come together today and are beginning to, when I say they are, the citizens in different communities that surround Ferguson have been helping since day one. It looks like Dalewood Police and another neighboring city, town, village, sent their police to support Ferguson. And so, yeah. And now the St. Louis County Children's Health Department or something of that is offering services to school-age children for them, for trauma, and to help them to, you know, get over this horrific event. Many children were out marching initially, not looting, not rioting, but on the prayer vigils and the peaceful protests. There were many children there, little children and elementary age and, you know, middle school age. So with school starting back this week, children are going to need that processing period and especially if they saw that young man's body lying out, they're going to need. So I was glad to see the county, St. Louis County, offering that service to families for free. I'll put the link below, so if you know anyone who might want to take advantage of it, they can. So this is really a solemn time. It's a solemn time for our city. It's a solemn time for our country. Please don't let this be a test for martial law. You know, a family member had mentioned to me that there's a street in St. Louis called Goodfellow, and on Goodfellow there is this government agency that I guess they still own that property. And so I was told that on that property now is a fleet of tanks there, and that facility looked like it was being prepared for use during martial law. And I just really pray that this is not a test for martial law, because the riots of East St. Louis happened in like the early 1900s, where that riot was instigated by whites coming in. It was an economically and racially based riot when whites came in and burned down East St. Louis because of animosity or jealousy over how prosperous the city had become. And Josephine Baker, by the way, had lived through that and experienced that East St. Louis riot. So, and she was traumatized by that. So, you know, there is history, there's a legacy of rioting in East St. Louis is across the Mississippi River in Illinois, and St. Louis is in Missouri. So we're two different states and cities, but when people hear East St. Louis, they think it's St. Louis. But still, because of how close in proximity we are, we have that legacy of riots, you know. And so I just pray that this was not some kind of test for some sort of craziness like that. Because on Saturday, right when the response to get the young man's body covered and to just clean up or whatever the process is, I don't know, seemed to take so long. But the process to bring out the attack dogs and to roll out a big tank just seemed so quick. And so it just makes me saddened to see the choice in the responses and stuff like that. So I vlogged this video once before, and then I'm vlogging it again because the first one was long. Well, this one's long too. But when I vlog, I don't want to sound accusatory, like I'm accusing people. I do want to be natural and honest, and I want to either reflect or share and comment, but I also want to be cautious in how I present the information to you. So I ask you to Google Ferguson. I ask you to Google, just find out all the information that you can, because that way you can have the information firsthand. And St. Louis has been very good about informing, and I don't watch TV anymore except for like when Grimm comes back on. I'll watch it on Fridays for Grimm. But it may be Scandal, I don't know. Scandal last season shook me. I'm like, I ain't watching this no more. So anyway, you all, that's it. This is a solemn day, back to school week, and let's send our children back to school. Oh, by the way, neighboring districts to Ferguson cancel school today. Jennings School District cancel school. Hazelwood School District cancel school. They're back to school first day because of this. Because kids are traumatized. Families are affected. I guess some people's homes were even burned. Their cars, I'm assuming, because I heard today one of the owners of the business who had his rifle out said people's personal property had been burned. I know the Quick Trip was burned. I saw pictures of that. So it's a solemn time, you all. So pray for St. Louis, and please, citizens, be aware and don't let us be looped into, suckered into acting impulsively that brings martial law on our city, because we don't want that. All right, be blessed. I'll film whenever I get a chance. All right, bye.